Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make a chocolate icebox cake, and this is what it looks like. This cake is a delicious combination of alternating layers of homemade chocolate wafer cookies and whipped cream. And then we put some more cookie crumbs around the outside of the cake. So good. So we're going to start by making our homemade chocolate wafers. Now, to make the batter, if you have an electric stand mixer like I have here, use your paddle attachment. You could use a hand mixer, or really you could just use a large bowl and a wooden spoon. The first thing that you will need is 10 tablespoons, which is 140 grams of butter. I'm using unsalted butter. I like the flavor of unsalted, but if you have a favorite salted, by all means use that. Just have it at room temperature. Put it right in there. And then I'm just going to beat this on, medium speed, just until it's nice and smooth. Okay. And as always, when you're making any kind of batter, periodically stop, scrape down the sides and bottom of your bowl. You want to make sure all the ingredients get mixed together. So next, we are going to add 1 cup, which is 200 grams of light brown sugar. Now, if you're not weighing your brown sugar, when you put it into the measuring cup, kind of pat it down. But, as always, I do recommend that you weigh your ingredients. And then you will also need a half a cup, 100 grams of granulated white sugar. And I'm also going to flavor our batter with 1.5 teaspoons, 6 grams of pure vanilla extract. Now I'm just going to beat this medium-high speed. I want to get everything all mixed together and get a little bit of air in this mixture. Okay, looks good. This is what you're looking for. Beautiful mixture. Okay, so now for our dry ingredients. In a separate bowl, I have 1.5 cups, which is 195 grams of all-purpose flour. You may know that as plain flour. To that, I'm going to add 3/4 cup, 75 grams of unsweetened cocoa powder. Now for this, you can use either one, the Dutch processed or the regular or natural unsweetened. I am going to sift it. I'm using the Dutch processed here. That's my favorite. Some people prefer to use just the natural. That's their preference. My preference is the Dutch processed. And to that, I'm also going to add 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. That's 1 gram, and 1/2 teaspoon, 2 grams of salt. Now, if you used salted butter, then I would just leave out that salt. And I'm just going to, now you could sift all this together, but I did sift the cocoa powder because it tends to have lumps, so I think that's enough sifting. I'm just going to whisk it, but either way, just want to make sure all these ingredients are mixed together. Now this recipe is eggless, or not, it's kind of more like a shortbread, but a little softer because we are going to add some milk or light cream. Oh, okay. Now I'm just going to put that right in there. Now I'm going to start this on low speed. We do not want that flour coming up into our face. Start to mix that together. Now it's not completely mixed together, but almost there. So now I'm going to add some milk. Now you can either use a whole, like a full fat milk, or I'm actually using a 1/2 or like a light cream. Now you may need I'm going to say 3 tablespoons, probably at least, maybe 4. Enough that the batter is soft, enough that we can form it into a log, but not too soft. I will show you what it's supposed to look like, so then you'll know at home. So I'm going to start with 3, and then we will look at it and go from there. Okay, that seems to be coming together, as you can see, into I guess I'd call that a cohesive mass. Is that the technical term? It sounds good anyways. Yeah, I'm happy with that. It's soft, but not too soft. That's what you're looking for. That gives you an idea at home. Okay, so put that aside. So now we're going to roll it into a log. A 10-inch log, that's 25 centimeters. So have your trusty ruler. And then a piece of plastic wrap, or some people like to use wax paper, parchment paper. You could use foil. So now you want to do it into a round. You know, sometimes I must admit mine isn't perfectly round. It's kind of hard. You have to fuss to do that. And sometimes what I do is you can roll it, and if it's not, and then it gets a little soft, it's not quite round, maybe oblong, you can put it in the fridge, get it a little, like chill it for a half an hour, and then take it out and then roll it a little more, and then you can maybe get that perfectly round. I'm going to actually do this. So just, you can see it easily. And if you were doing this and your log was really falling apart, cracking a lot and not, then you probably don't have enough milk. So just put it back and just stir in a little more milk. See where we're at. Yeah, almost right. Okay. How round? If you have it like a flat edge, you can just kind of get those nice. Check that again. Yeah. I'm happy with that. So roll that up. We can just like so. And then you put it into the refrigerator. Normally what I do is I do it this far, I put it in the fridge, and I let it sit overnight. You want it nice and chilled, nice and firm, so you can slice it. We're going to slice it into wafers. But if you want to do it all in one day, I would say at least, like, say, 3-4 hours. So that's what I'm going to do, and then when we come back, we will bake them off. So now we are ready to slice our log. So first, preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius. You will need a baking sheet. I've lined mine with parchment paper, but you could just lightly butter it or even spray it with one of those non-stick sprays. And then take your log, and you need your ruler again, and with a sharp knife, what I'm going to do is divide it off. I'm going to cut this into 1/4 of an inch slices, which is, about 0.6 centimeters, kind of odd number there. The important thing to do is to make like every slice the same thickness. That's the important part. So once I take my knife and I just mark it off, which I've done for most of them, and then just take your sharp knife and cut down. Like so. Whoop, that one I didn't do right. I can't cut on that angle, guys. I'll have to, sorry. I have to do it like that. Okay, so there we go. I put 12, space them a little bit apart because they are going to spread. So now, chocolate wafers, you want them nice and crisp and crunchy. So we got to bake them long enough. I'm going to say 12, actually more to the 14 minutes. Rotate your baking pan front to back halfway through baking. So what they're going to spread, they're going to be firm to the touch, and on top they're going to puff a bit, and on top there's going to be like just little ripples, I guess you would call them, and that's very normal. So 12, maybe 14 minutes. Okay, so our chocolate wafers are done. Now whether you can see, there's little, I guess, ripples on the top, and they've puffed up a little bit. So what I'm going to do, I put the baking sheet on a wire rack. I'm going to let them cool for, maybe 5 minutes because they're a little fragile, and then I'll transfer them over to a wire rack to finish cooling. And then I'm going to, meanwhile, I'll bake off the rest of my chocolate wafers. I'm going to do all that, and then when we come back, we will start our whipped cream. So I've baked off all of our chocolate wafers. Now, a few notes on that. One, once you bake them off, you can store chocolate wafers for about 10 days. So it's one of those things, you could do this cake in stages. Another thing, they do freeze very well. And actually, once you form the batter into that log, you can freeze that log unbaked. So it's another thing, you can make these way ahead of time. So now, for our pan, you will need an 8-inch round pan, 20 centimeters, and I'm going to make a pretty tall, it's going to be 5 layers of chocolate wafers, so you want to have a pan that's 3 inches deep, 7.5 centimeters. And if you don't have, I personally don't have like a regular round cake pan that's that deep. So I'm actually using a springform pan, although I'm not going to actually use it as a springform pan, but that's the only pan I have that's that deep. Now, if you don't have a springform pan and you don't have a 3-inch, 7.5 centimeter deep cake pan, don't worry. Just use, if you have a 2-inch, 5 centimeter, use that. You just won't be able to make as many layers. And so you will have to cut larger slices. So once you get your pan, line it, as you can see here, I've lined it with plastic wrap and have it overhanging because that's going to make it so much easier to unmold. So we have that. So now for our cream filling. If you have a stand mixer like I have here, use your whisk attachment. You can use a hand mixer for this, or really, you could just use a large bowl with a wire whisk. The first thing, we're making whipped cream, so you will need whipped cream. 2 cups, 480 milliliters, 480 grams of heavy whipping cream. My cream is cold. Now, heavy whipping cream has about a 35 to 40% butterfat content. And what that means is when I beat this, if I beat it enough, it will like hold stiff peaks. Now, I'm going to do, a lot of Icebox cakes just have whipped cream. I'm going to make mine a little different. I'm going to add some mascarpone cheese. A half a cup, 120 grams of mascarpone cheese, which is it's cold. This cheese is buttery rich and the texture is velvety smooth. And it also is going to make our filling a little more more texture to it. And that's, besides the flavor, it adds the texture. It's just wonderful. Now, typically, you can buy it in most grocery stores now. It comes in these like little tubs. You can normally find it in the deli section. Of course, if you go to a gourmet, more type store, a specialty food store, you can find it there. I know it can be, sometimes I find it can be really expensive, or if you just can't find it, you could substitute with an equal amount of cream cheese, or really, if you don't, you can just make it without the mascarpone or cream cheese, just have a whipped cream filling. Yeah, all of them are very good. Can't complain. So, some options there. So there, put that in there. For the sugar, I'm adding 1/4 cup, 40 grams of confectioner's sugar. You may know that is powdered or icing sugar. Sift it because it does tend to have lumps. Now, I use 1/4 cup. Really, this is one of those things where how sweet do you want your whipped cream? If you don't want it, this is not too sweet, this amount. You can up it if you prefer. So you could put about this and then taste your cream, and if you find it not sweet enough, you could add a little more. And then I like to add just a little bit, a half a teaspoon, 2 grams of pure vanilla extract. I always think I like my whipped cream to have a little bit of vanilla. So now what I'm going to do, start this on low speed because I don't want it coming up in my face. And then we're going to beat it on, medium high speed and just until, I don't want it real stiff, like soft peaks. Okay, I'm going to check that. Whenever you check your cream, just take your whisk and then, give it a good stir. So that's what I'm looking for. Pretty stiff. Now, if you happen to look away and it got too stiff, like butter, what you can do is just add a little more cold, heavy cream to that, and then just use your whisk and just do it by hand, because it does happen. So now, we have our pan, we have our cream, we are ready to go here. So, for your wafer, first, what we're going to do is, the bottom of our cake, we're going to invert it, so it's going to end up being the top of our cake. So what you want to do is take your cookies and do them, right side down, so that when we unmold it, that will be the top. And, how many wafers you can fit depends on the size. I find with this, I think I've found 7 cookies. And so you just want, especially this is going to be the top of our cake, so we want, take your best cookies and kind of put them kind of like a jigsaw puzzle here. Fit them. There can be a little gap. I'll just show you. Now I did have to go through all my cookies to find this, so as you can see, it fits really nice. There is some gaps, so when you unmold the cake, you can see there'd be the dark cookies and then the white whipped cream, the black and white. Looks really cool. So there, you do that, and then we're going to add a layer of whipped cream. You might want to start, you could put it in a piping bag and pipe. You just want an even layer, not too thick. I'm going to say somewhere between 3/4 and a cup. Really, this is how you want to do it. If you want thick cream, then go ahead and do it that way. I'm going to go with about this and see. So just put your cream there, and then I'm just going to spread it out. And actually, put a little more there. Okay. Especially this first layer, because you got to fill in that gap. You might need a little extra. I think I'm going to need a full cup. So just take, the back of a spoon, or I've got an offset spatula here, and spread it out. I'm going to put just a little more in there. Who doesn't like whipped cream? Okay, it's almost done. Now, the first layer is you want your best cookies. Now, what I find sometimes I have to break a cookie in half to fit it, and that's fine because no one's going to see the inside. And it all becomes like just a solid mass, so you can't even tell if you have to break a few to fit it. Okay, so that looks good. Of course, you always seem to have more cream in the center, but so now I'm just going to, again, I'm going to do them top side down and just put that around. See how many I can fit. If you have to overlap, especially once after you do that first one layer, that's okay. I'm just going to, actually, it's not quite, it's a little big, so I'm just going to put it like that. And I'm going to keep doing that until I get to the top of the pan, which I find is about 5 layers. Okay, I'm on my last layer. So I did have 5 layers of the chocolate wafers. I didn't mention, but your second layer, when you put your cookies down, kind of press gently the cookies down into the cream so you get like a real nice solid layer. Okay. Finish up with a layer of cream. And then the hard part comes, because we can't eat this right away. If, you know, I'll just show. This is our homemade chocolate wafer. I don't know whether you can hear, but it's a real crunchy cookie with a really deep chocolate flavor, but so crisp and crunchy. So what we want, we're going to have to, because our wafers are like fairly thick, we're going to have to cover this and put it into the refrigerator and let it chill for, I would say, at least a day. Because what we want is that the cream is going to soften our chocolate wafers. And then plus it gives time for, like, we're going to get like a solid, firm mass, like a cake. But that takes time. Like I said, I would say at least a day. I know it's hard to wait, but sometimes you just got to do that. This is a great cake to make in the summer. You don't have to turn that oven on, other than the chocolate wafers, but we can make those ahead, like I said. So there we have it. If you did have extra whipped cream, keep it, because when we unmold, we're going to smooth those sides out. So if you have a little extra cream, you could just put it around there tomorrow. But I don't. I used it all. I do have a little cook street with some leftover. I had to cut some of my wafers down to fit, so it's can nibble on those. So as you can see, we have the overlap, so we can cover it like so. And I'm just going to put this into the refrigerator for 24 hours, and then when we come back, we will unmold it. Now I did have, because we made a 10-inch log, cut them into, so we get 40 cookies. I only used 35, got 5 left over, so we can decorate the sides with the cookie crumbs. I'll show you that tomorrow. So until then. So our icebox cake has chilled overnight, 24 hours. So now we can unmold it. So I'm just gonna peel back the plastic wrap. Now I'm going to unmold this as if I'm not using a springform pan, as if it's just a regular cake pan. So I have one of these cardboard cake circles, and I'm just going to put that right there. Now if you don't have that, you could just take your serving platter and then put it upside down on top of your cake, and then press that down, and then I'm just going to flip it over like so, and hopefully I'm just going to, now I could unclamp it, but I'm showing you as if this was just a regular cake pan. So there we have, and I'm just going to peel back plastic wrap. Makes it really handy using that, comes off really easy. And there is our icebox cake. I think it looks really cool just the way it is. But, I mean, if you wanted to, you could take a flat edge and smooth the sides, but this is a casual cake, so I'm not going to do that. Actually, normally I just do that and that's it. But we did have some leftover cookies or chocolate wafers. So if you did, what you could do is, I just put them in a plastic bag. So I just crunched this up, put it in here, and then I just bang, 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 until you get crumbs. And then I'm just putting this in a baking sheet. It can get kind of messy. There's all different ways of doing this. You may have your favorite way. So what I do is just pick this up and kind of tilt it a little. Now you could use a spoon, or you can just use your hands, and then just, I don't know whether you can see that, just kind of put the crumbs like so. And then if you want, you can kind of just gently pat them in. So I'm just going to go around, do the whole cake that way. Okay, I'm happy with that. You can just take a knife if you have a little extra, and we can see this turned around, some crumbs on the bottom, and just get rid of those extra crumbs. And then on your serving plate. I think that looks really nice. I like the look of this on top with the black and the white, very striking. So, now just a little history. Icebox comes from the fact that this type of cake was invented about the time of refrigerators. So besides icebox, it's also called a refrigerator cake. And I'm just going to use a sharp knife to cut this. And at first, these cakes were made with sponge cake or lady fingers layered with custard or pastry cream and then put into the refrigerator, kind of like an English trifle. But you know, this kind of cookie and cream cake, I think, is the most popular type of icebox cake today, with good reason. And just, you know, so you know, you can make this with other types of cookies. You don't have to use a chocolate wafer, vanilla wafer, ginger cookies, or really any type of cookie. And if you didn't, you could flavor your whipped cream if you wanted to. When you're cutting, between cuts, you know, just wipe off your knife and then you get a, you know, more nicer, cleaner cut. Use this recipe as a springboard for your own kind of invention of how. I mean, you could use a chocolate mousse instead of a whipped cream. But you know, this one I think is the simplest, just your whipped cream. Now, doesn't that look pretty good? Sometimes, now this is really cold. Sometimes what I like to do is put the cake into the freezer for about a half an hour before serving. Then it gets really cold, kind of like ice cream. Pretty good too. So let's try it. For something so simple, chocolate wafers, whipped cream, it is so good. Actually, this tastes like an ice cream sandwich to me, because our chocolate wafer, I know originally the Nabisco have a cookie, famous chocolate wafer, and on the back of their box they put a recipe for this type of cake. Only they took their chocolate wafers, just layered it with put some whipped cream on top, made a stack, and then turned it over so it's like a log shape, which you can do. But I really like making my homemade chocolate wafers. They're crisp, they're crunchy, and they have a lot of flavor because we use quite a bit of cocoa powder. And then the whipped cream, I'm going to just take a little more of that. You know, this would be nice with like maybe raspberries or some other kind of tart fruit, or even like a fruit sauce, like a raspberry sauce. Be very good too. A really nice cake. People will think, wow, it looks so cool. You must have worked so hard, but really not. And this can be stored in the refrigerator like 4 or 5 days. But you really want, because our chocolate wafers are pretty thick, let this sit at least a day before you try to cut it. Otherwise, the chocolate wafers won't be soft enough. So you must try this one. And until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.